if I quit, are people going to look at me and say, well, she's a quitter? And how does that look considering I'm a retired Army officer,
Correct.
right? What does that signal? And then the other part of me is, what am I teaching my kids?
Welcome to the Business After Hours, where the ties loosen, the suit relax, and we talk business without the boardroom. Grab your favorite drink, kick back, and let's dive into the world of business after hours.
All righty. Welcome to the Business After Hours podcast. I'm the main host today. Jared will be in here in just a little bit, but here with Olivia. How are you doing today, ma'am?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much.
Good. You ready for Christmas?
I am. I still have like a couple gifts to get, but for the
Right.
most part, I'm ready.
Yeah, we got done pretty early ourselves on our end. So ready for a new year and see where 2025 takes us, right?
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Let our listeners get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, so I am a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel. I did 20 years. I retired 3 years ago. It's so hard to believe it's been 3 years. I swear I retired just like yesterday, but it's actually been
Well, thank you for your
3.
service too.
Thank you. And I am second generation of service to our nation. My dad served, and so I knew since the age of 4 that I wanted to serve. And I met my husband when I was serving. And then when I was getting out, when we were putting our retirement paperwork in, we went through an unexpected divorce. We have 2 children and we co-parent. And when I got out of the Army, I hit rock bottom. I, during my rock bottom, I almost committed suicide. I talk about that story, trying to figure out myself. I became an accidental entrepreneur. I got into the world of pageantry. I'm a motivational speaker, and I'm a mental health advocate, and I'm very involved in the military space. I work with 3 military nonprofits. And yeah, every day is about trying to figure out who is this new me in this life without the uniform. And I believe that military transition leads into transformation.
I definitely agree with that. So Jared, the other co-host, it's my brother. He unexpectedly medically retired from the military. He did 13 years. And so watching his transition from military life to civilian life was quite difficult, especially when it was unexpected. And watching the mental health side of things, like I'm sure everything you were going through, like not good enough. What's my meaning of life and all of this? And so when you were going through that, what was it that kind of got you out of that mindset and to more of a victory kind of mindset?
It's a daily thing, right? The journey of healing is a daily journey, and it's going to be a lifelong journey, to be honest. And I talk about it, how there are lots of moments of dark and there's a lot of moments of light. And for me, it was having a circle of friends that checked in on me and my family, and reminding me that I had purpose in this life, and reminding me of my purpose and my worth, and that I had something to do. But not to say that road was easy.
Sure.
And it's hard because for 20 plus years, right? Because I was a cadet in college, and because I knew I wanted to be in the Army since I was 4, my identity has been wrapped up in that uniform for
Sure.
such a long time, and trying to figure out who I am without that uniform. Who is Olivia without that uniform? Who is Olivia who's not married anymore, who's not an officer in the United States Army, who's no longer a wife? And how do I continue? And who am I going to be? And that's really hard. And I think the other part of that identity is not just the uniform, but also what that uniform can do for you, right? I was a lieutenant colonel, and when you wear that uniform, there's doors that open for you.
Sure.
And when you don't have that uniform and you just walk into a room and it's just, you're in a suit or a dress or, or sweats, people just look at you like, and,
Right.
and,
Right.
that takes a lot of getting used to, um, especially when you're a minority woman who's only 5'1", and people just kind of look at you like, why are you here? And
Sure.
that's kind of, something that I've had to learn to readjust.
How has that been? Because in the military, from my understanding at least, is that, like, there's no, or very limited bias, I should say, because I'm sure that there's still some bias, but very limited bias. It's either, pretty strict, rigid to, in the civilian life, everybody judges. Everybody is doing everything that they're not supposed to, discriminating and whatnot. So how was that? Was that a shock to you? Was it just an unplanned shock? Was it, or how was that going through that?
I think there are still biases in the Army. They're just different types of biases.
Okay,
And and I still experience them in corporate America. It's just some of it is similar, and I think some of it is different. What I still find in corporate America is, you're still going to run into racism. You're still going to run into sexism, regardless of where you go. But what I now struggle with is that the like-mindedness that you had in the military.
sure,
People understood in the military you're moving towards an objective, a purpose, and relatively in the same type of speed, which was kind of a hurried speed.
right,
And that's not the same in corporate world, right?
right,
And you do a lot more of what I say kumbaya, right? It's like we had to do a little more, as I say, touchy feely, like get to know you how you feel, and making sure that everyone, likes you and is okay with you, and get more of a consensus to
right,
get to the end state. Whereas in the military, it's more like, I would say, to keep it easy, draconian.
right.
And I I kind of struggle with that sometimes, where I have to rein in my temper and my mouth sometimes, and I'm just like, okay, I gotta woosah here, and just not
Right,
everybody thinks like me, and not everybody understands where I come from, and I have to take a step back and just realize that we don't all have military training. So,
right. So how did you step into the entrepreneurial role?
so my last job in the United States Army was U.S. Army Soldier for Life, and we were in the business of transitioning service members. And I did a lot of consulting on behalf of the Army, and I was a public affairs officer. And when I was doing that job, I was told time and time again that people told me, Olivia, when you get out, you should consult. You are very good at what you do in terms of communication, building communication plans, branding, social media, because I'd been doing it for 10 years for the Army. And I kind of jokingly laughed it off, but people kept telling me. So that, I think that seed had been planted.
Okay,
And when I got out of the Army, actually, before I officially got out, as I was transitioning in my last year, when I was going through my divorce, a good friend of mine who now I work with had called on me. He knew something was wrong, and he knew something was up. And so he called me and he said, let's go to lunch. So he took me out to lunch, and he was just like, tell me what's going on. And so I told him what was going on, and he was asking me about the divorce. And he just kind of looked dead at me, and he was just like, where's your LLC, Olivia? And I just kind of gave him this dumbfounded look. What? He's like, where is your LLC? And I said, I don't know. And he's like, Olivia, I need you to get an LLC. I've worked for you. We have work to do. And I just kind of looked at him dumbfounded. It's like, we have work to do. You have talent. Let's get to work. And I just kind of looked at him and went, okay. And we just went back to eating lunch, and we talked about other things. And when I came home, I let that conversation sink in, and I realized, yeah, I have work to do. Like,
sure.
need to I need to do this. And I think, and then it was all these other conversations from my past that kind of clicked in. And in that week, I had my LLC. I
Awesome.
set it all up. So by the time I had retired, my LLC was officially formed. Now, me actually working in that business and actually working as Olivia Nunn Communications in full out form, it took another year in terms of taking clients and running the business. But from that formation, it started before I actually got out. And so that's why I call myself an accidental entrepreneur, because there's no way in my right mind, as I was exiting the army, as I was setting up the business, did I actually think that I was going to be a business owner, let
Right.
alone running this business.
Well, tell us about the business.
So Olivia Nunn Communications is a communication strategy, social media branding strategy company. I also do event planning, where I help companies tell their story in a very unique way. Where I also assist people being camera ready, right? It's what I did in the Army. I helped general officers become camera ready. I also assist people establish their podcast or maybe refine their podcast services. Um, Not all of my clients are tied to the military, but most of them are.
Okay.
Most of my referrals have been by word of mouth, and I believe that each one of my customers have a unique story to tell, and I believe that that is how you're going to be able to sell your services, through the artwork of storytelling, because that's how you connect with people.
Right. And what have been your struggles along the way of getting to where you're at today?
Uh, you know, financing, right?
Okay.
I've bootstrapped this company, and then I think the other part is, um I think people think that I'm doing really well and don't necessarily need the clients because I of what I do in terms of what they see on social media.
Right.
Um, because I think when they look at my own social media, they see me. I'm here. I'm there. I'm at this event. I'm at the next event. They see me actively engaged with one nonprofit to another nonprofit. I'm at one event or another event. So I think they think that maybe my plate is too engaged or too full, or that I can't take on another client, when in fact that's not necessarily the case.
Okay. What successes have you been having?
Um, I think for me, it's been really the fact that people value my ability to tell their story, um, and the small wins of being able to um, just people seek me out from the things that I don't even realize that people seek me out for, whether it's to assist them in their social media, or just to be a storyteller, or to be a guest presenter. So I think for that, I'm happy to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How has business been?
It's In all honesty, the first year was amazing, right? In fact, I just shared this with another podcaster, talking about finance in terms of business, where I was told, right, because you get people to help you along the way, and I got great advice, and they said, your first 5 years are going to be rough, right? A lot of businesses don't make it,
Correct.
and because I came out of the gate as an entrepreneur with a client, with couple clients actually, and I was doing so well that in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm doing fine. Like, this is great. I'm like, this is going to be great. I didn't take that to heart. Um, so I kind of I don't know if I laughed it off, but I didn't take that note seriously. I was like, yeah, it's gonna be fine. Like, I'm not necessarily skyrocketing $1 million, but I'm
Right.
like, I'm okay. I'm paying my bills. This is gonna be good. And after the first like 3 quarters, everything was fine. And the fourth quarter hit, and my company just tanked.
Oh
And the
no.
reason being is my biggest client went bankrupt in the middle of the night, right? Which this is not what you planned for, but that's what happened.
Correct.
And when you are, not that I wasn't looking for additional clients, but that's just the way it happened. And when your mainstream revenue from your largest client goes under, and the economy starts to tank, right?
Right.
Everybody's starting to hurt, right? Because we're talking at the end of 23, 24 is a rough year.
Right.
My company just started hurting, and it started to get really rough for me. And that made me realize this is what they mean by companies, don't necessarily make it. And so for a few months, I was like, can I bounce back? Can I bounce back? Can I not bounce back? And that made me really look at entrepreneurship through a different lens.
And what lens now do you look at it differently compared to what you did before?
That you have to learn how to be flexible and how to pivot quickly, right? You have to look at your offerings, the way you structure your prices, what are you willing to bend on, how you negotiate, like all of those things. And then be uncomfortable with the things that you're uncomfortable with and to work through that, right?
Okay.
I am totally okay with networking and meeting people. That's never been a problem for me, whereas I know other people are. But what I'm not comfortable with is the negotiation, right?
Mhm.
Asking for help is not my strong suit.
Yeah.
Asking people to help me, not my strong suit.
Right.
Asking for people to help me open a window or a door, not my strong suit, right? Again, because those are all things to ask help,
Right.
not my strong suit, right? Which I also talk about that in my mental health story, right? Asking for help. And then the other part is when we get to the side of selling myself or selling or negotiating what I need to do in my business side of the house, I stink at that, right?
Okay.
If I could do that if somebody else could handle that for me, that would be fantastic, right? But
Right.
unfortunately, that's a cost that I cannot incur. So, that is the part of the business that I am uncomfortable with. And I think that comes back from the Army side of how we don't sell ourselves. We are always talking about we as collectively and not
Correct.
I. And I'm so uncomfortable with that.
One thing I want to say is I appreciate you being very vulnerable about your struggles, because that's why we do this podcast, is just so that other business owners can know that they're not alone in all of their feelings. Like, it's normal to feel some of this, especially when your company does a little dip. Take us through that from the mental standpoint of things. When you went into that dip in that final quarter, where your company started where you lost that big client, for one, what was your mental attitude when it happened, and what got you out of that?
Um, it was really hard. I'm not even gonna lie. It was 9 months of unemployment. Um, it was a lot of wondering, was I in the right place? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Um, am I supposed to fold up and just say I'm done? Am I supposed to keep going? There was a lot of ego check, a lot of pride check.
Sure.
There were days that I wanted to say I'm done. And then there was those moments like, okay, if I quit, what is everyone going to think of me? Right? I'm not going to lie.
Sure.
There's that part of, if I quit, are people going to look at me and say, well, she's a quitter? And how does that look considering I'm a retired Army officer?
Correct.
Right? What does that signal? Um, and then the other part of me is, what am I teaching my kids?
Mm,
And then
good.
the other part was, what am I teaching myself? Right? Because I gave in when it was hard,
Sure.
right? Did I really push hard enough? Did I really turn every stone? So it was really hard. Like, those are the questions that I constantly wrestled with daily.
Sure.
Should I be here? And what should I be doing? And am I really cut out for this? and I did a lot of questioning of like, maybe I suck. Maybe I'm not a good public affairs officer or public relations person. Maybe I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I mean, I went through
Sure.
this very dark,
Can imagine.
um, reflection. And then the other part was, just outside of from the business perspective was just being a mom, right? Just a failure as a mom. Like I cannot keep things up, right? Because I couldn't keep things up and because I did not have a business flow of cash, right? Things got hard financially. I had maxed everything out. There was no savings, right? And from a parental perspective, like what am I doing? What am I
Right.
doing to provide for my kids? And it got hard. Um and this is where pride comes in, right? Like how can a lieutenant colonel with 20 years
Right.
now be at a situation where she can no longer afford the simplest things, right?
Hmm.
A carton of milk, you know,
Right.
eggs, like I was at a really low point in my life. Again, right? Another low point in my life. And where I was very depressed and I was thinking about taking my life again because here I was like I went through this divorce, I came and I had retired and I figured out how to kind of come back from the bottom, and now I feel like I'm at the bottom all over again.
Right.
Um, and so I'm like, what is so wrong with me? Right? I went up, I came back down. And so I I did a lot of, what I felt like was going around and around in my thoughts. A lot of praying, a lot
Sure.
of praying. Um, and uh, spending a lot of time, in conversation with my partner. He's also an entrepreneur himself, and just figuring out, what do we do? I had to have help from my parents, my sister, and my partner, just to make kind of ends meet. Um, and then I ended up having to put my resume back out there. It's not what I wanted, but
Right.
at some point, you have to say you can't be at zero anymore. Um, but you get through it.
No, that's good. And so what was getting you through it? What was it? Was the having your partner with you? Was it a mentor or a friend that kind of like either like woke you up kind of deal? Was there an aha moment just with internally with you, or what was it that got you out of it?
I think, I mean, a big part of my support structure is my partner, right?
Sure.
But I think the other part is, I think for me, it's just honestly, I just have this attitude of I can't give up, right? I think most of it's just this attitude of I won't give up and I can't give up.
Right.
Most of it is based on, I think, pride, right?
Yes.
Pride of I can't give up because what is everyone else gonna say? I can't give up because my family is expecting from me, right? I can't give up because of my kids. So, there's expectation. The expectation of failure is not an option.
Okay. No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, because I think sometimes, we have the willpower. Sometimes it feels like to get us out of those low moments and we can do it ourselves, but seems like any more these days, the more people you have around you lifting you up, whether it be a partner or best friend or a mentor, getting us out of those moments are key moments in our lives. I feel like, especially with the mental health that's going on in today's world here in America. So, Olivia, I appreciate you being extremely vulnerable with us. What I'd like for you to do is give us a plug in for your company, a little infomercial about you, yourself, your company, and why should people come and contact you?
Yeah, so Living on Communications is a communication branding social media strategist company, and I'm all about being able to tell your company in a very unique storytelling way. And I'm also an event planner, and I believe that every company has a unique story to tell, and I would love the ability to tell your story.
Right. So here's her website, olivianunn.com. We're also going to include all her social medias in the description down below, hyperlink them so it'll be nice and easy for everybody to find. Is there any parting words that you have for us?
No, I think the big thing is you need a coach, right? And and not only that, fill your world with people that are going to root for you, right?
That's good.
People that are going to support you in your journey. They may not be your friends and family, right? They may be outsiders, but people who are going to support you. Because entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. I have learned that.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
and keep going, right? Just
Amen.
keep going. You have to believe in yourself. It is a rough journey, but it's worth it, I think, in the end. I worked in DoD contracting, and then I became an entrepreneur, and then having to go back and work for somebody again, and balancing being an entrepreneur at the same time. I value being able to own my own time, right? Especially being somebody who co-parents with my ex-husband, and busy in the military community space. I value my own time, being able to operate my own time. And so, yeah, I would love to be able to just say, I don't have a company to answer to. It's just my clients. To
Right.
be able to say that, I think is well worth being an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. You guys go visit Olivia Nunn at her website, and on all her social medias. Give her a follow, just so that we support each other. Thank you for being on, Olivia.
Thank
Hope you have
you.
hope you have a Merry Christmas and an incredible 2025.
Thank you so much. Merry Christmas to you and yours.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Business After Hours, where the ties loosen, the suit relax, and we talk business without the boardroom. Grab your favorite drink, kick back, and let's dive into the world of business after hours.